Verger. Calculating self-interest, apparent religiosity, and the awakening of ethical consciousness. The testimony of the Spirit. Verger, presented in the second part of Heaven and Hell, clearly reveals a spiritual state marked by the use of religion as a tool for personal interest, by external practices disconnected from inner transformation, and by the moral shock that occurs when deep intentions are finally unveiled by one's own conscience. Verger manifests with intellectual clarity and preserved memory. In life, he presented himself as a religious person, adhering to external rites and norms, but guided his choices mainly by the calculation of advantages, the pursuit of recognition, and personal security. On the spiritual level, this dissociation between moral appearance and real intention becomes unsustainable. The conscience begins to see without filters what truly motivated its attitudes. Modern depth psychology helps to understand this phenomenon. When values are adopted merely as social identity or belonging strategy, without real integration into the personality, an internal division is created. The person learns to play a role but does not transform their character. When the mechanisms of self-protection fall away, consciousness comes into conflict with the self-constructed image. Spiritism clarifies that Verger's suffering is not punishment for professing a belief, but rather a result of the incoherence between discourse and moral living. Spiritual life does not evaluate labels, positions, or external practices, but the authenticity of intentions and the real effect of actions. Religiosity without ethics does not sustain consciousness after the death of the body. Modern science reinforces this reading by showing that psychological integrity depends on the coherence between declared values and actual behaviors. Studies in moral psychology indicate that the dissonance between belief and action generates internal suffering when a person becomes aware of it. On a spiritual level, this dissonance manifests in a direct and intense way. Another striking point in Verger's testimony is the attempt at moral negotiation. He believed that fulfilling religious formalities could compensate for selfish attitudes and self-serving intentions. Upon awakening, he realizes that conscience does not operate through symbolic exchanges. There is no moral credit without real transformation. Ethics cannot be outsourced. Spiritism teaches that this state is not definitive, as Verger recognizes that true spirituality requires inner honesty, empathy, and commitment to the good. A process of re-education of consciousness begins. Suffering exists as long as consciousness insists on preserving appearance instead of inner truth. This testimony offers a current and profound warning. In contexts where spirituality can be used as status, identity, or an instrument of power, Verger's account reminds us that it is not what one professes that elevates consciousness, but what one lives. Spiritual life does not deceive with speeches. Verger teaches us that faith, to be liberating, must transform character. Rites without ethics do not sustain inner peace. Consciousness matures when it abandons calculation and embraces coherence. Reflecting on this account is an invitation to authenticity. Examining one's own motivations, aligning values and attitudes, and living goodness in a concrete way now is the safest way to build future balance. Awareness grows when one chooses to be true, even when that requires a deep revision of oneself. If this testimony helped you reflect on moral coherence, spiritual authenticity, and inner responsibility, like, share, and leave your comment. Your participation helps this message reach more people.